Great.
All right,
Thank
you're
you,
ready.
Chairman.
Let's go right ahead. Thanks for joining us.
And welcome, Director Williams. Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Glad you enjoyed your visit to Satchwest Point,
I did.
one of your most beautiful locations. I wanted to flag just a few things for you. One is I would encourage you to support as much as you can the invasive species program. I visited, for instance, Valley Falls Pond in Rhode Island and seen it completely overrun by invasive water chestnut. And the homeowners nearby have a real problem on their hands. And the better we can be at helping them, the better off. A lot of these are historic and treasured features, and when an invasive species comes in and transmutes them, it's ordinarily not to anyone's advantage. So if you could help with that, I would be grateful. I know you've got a lot of different places and a lot of different invasive species, but I wanted to flag that in particular. I also wanted to flag, as we discussed the other day, making sure we're paying a lot of attention to the Narragansett tribe. We had a visit from the secretary, and I sat down with her and the tribe leaders, and I mentioned, it's been a long time since the Secretary of the Interior has visited the Narragansett tribe. Don't know exactly how long. And John Brown, who's the medicine man for the Narragansetts, put his hand up and said, "I do." He said, the last time, I'm not going to get the year exactly right, but it's order of magnitude. He said, the last time was in 1862, and it was for purposes of removal of our tribe. And Secretary Holland burst into tears at hearing that. So I hope that the overlooked Narragansett tribe is going to get a good deal more attention and support. The last thing I'll mention is that I hope that the department, all the way to the top, tells the White House how important the RISE bill is. The RISE bill would take revenue from offshore wind development so that local revenue, the 37% from GOMESA that you get from oil and gas offshore, is matched by offshore wind. Because if you don't have a match, then when the developers are going into a state legislature or a governor and they say, well, we can do more oil and gas, in which case you get 37% of our revenues, or we can do offshore wind, in which case you get the big zero, that puts offshore wind at a very serious regulatory and political disadvantage against further oil and gas development. And we should eliminate that disadvantage. It's going to be very important, I believe, to offshore wind development in the Gulf. And the RISE bill has very solid support from Republicans along the Gulf Coast. And also the former Democratic governor of Louisiana was a very, very enthusiastic supporter. So we would very much like to get that done. If we get that done, then the revenues go to the Coastal Resilience Fund. And as you know, I've had a long problem with the Land and Water Conservation Fund, that it should properly be called the Inland, Upland, and Freshwater Conservation Fund. And when you get to the coast, there's essentially nothing there. And we could have a big old fight with Delaware and Rhode Island quarreling with upland states about reallocating Land and Water Conservation Fund dollars more fairly to coasts and to saltwater. But better than fighting over that existing pie, better to add a little sibling that would take care better of coastal and saltwater concerns, and putting the coastal fund in as I said, like a kid brother to the Land and Water Conservation Fund. So we're not trying to compete for resources, but we're adding to the conservation resource. and doing so in a way that encourages offshore wind and is fairer and et cetera. So please take back that I'm eager to see that become a priority recommendation to Congress from the administration. I think we're there, but you're never entirely sure until it's game day, and then if you find out you're wrong, it's too late. So let's try to get an enthusiasm. I don't know if you have a response to that already.
Senator Whitehouse, what I do have a response to is an agreement about how much the Fish and Wildlife Service cares about coastal and marine resources. And as an example, when I traveled to New Hampshire with the secretary, so I'm sorry it was not Rhode Island coastal area, to see the incredible projects in marsh restoration and her full support of that. And I would add, in my travels with the secretary, she has taught me, as she showed in meeting with the Narragansett tribe, just how important our partnerships are with the tribes and the deep connection that tribes and indigenous peoples across the country and even into the Pacific remote islands have with nature. And there's much for us to learn from that and to change our approach. So I will be happy to carry forward your messages, and I know it's something that the secretary cares about deeply and expects all of us to as well, and we share that. And I would love to see and continue to support coastal areas and marine resources that are very important as well, not just Delaware and Rhode Island, but across our coastal areas.
Well, thank you. And I don't mean to suggest that the Land and Water Conservation Fund support for coastal and saltwater projects is zero, but is way out of balance when you consider how much coastal land there is, how much ocean that is the sovereign property of the United States compared to upland freshwater. And the best way to remedy that balance is to make the pie bigger with the RISE Fund rather than engage in a fight over where the Land and Water Conservation Fund should be dedicated. Let it keep doing what it's doing, but let's add in something for our coastal and saltwater areas. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Senator. What I did forget, if I have a moment, I forgot aquatic invasive species, and that our 25 budget does have a $7.7 million increase there. And just to share how important our efforts are to have early detection, rapid response, and appreciate your support there.